if you're not learning, you're not progressing. And nowhere is that more true than in the machining and manufacturing trades. What's up guys? Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine Tool, back here again for Practical Machinist. And today on Shop Talk, we're gonna be going through a few lessons that I've either learned or had reinforced over the last little bit here running my business. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Hey guys, so as promised on this episode of Machine Shop Talk, we are going to be diving into a little bit of my own experience over the last year or so here running my business at Lakewood Machine Tool. For those of you who have been following along with the videos over the last little while, I think it's pretty plain to see we've had up times where we have been so busy that we don't know what to do with all this work, and that has brought one kind of stress. We've also been so dead that we have been desperate to get work in the door and have had guys doing, government jobs just to keep people busy. Both those have had their own kinds of stress associated with them. Sometimes have felt better than others, but overall things have been going pretty well. Keeping that in mind, we have definitely had a few things that we've learned or had reinforced over the last little bit. I wouldn't say either of these are necessarily new things that we've learned, but they're things we've kind of had lessons that have reinforced, or lessons or experiences that have reinforced these ideas in our heads. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is training. We have, for the last probably 3-4 years, really focused on training up new hires rather than waiting for, experienced rock star machinists to come in the door. We've done everything with our hiring, from trying to offer wages up here, to offer different kinds of benefits, to offer flexible work schedules, to trying to hire a little bit more outside our area. And for whatever reason out there, there just isn't a pool of experienced machinists looking for work. We've talked about this before in other videos, but it just isn't like it was 10, 15, even 20 years ago. I mean, I don't have experience hiring 20 years ago, let's be real, but from what I hear, where you used to have a pool of qualified candidates in your area that would, either jump from job to job, or, a shop would close and then there'd be a whole bunch of experienced machinists out there. That kind of circumstance just does not exist anymore. People either are experienced and they have a good job, or people who have, that mid-range of experience, they're either not looking to leave their jobs or they're leaving the trade entirely. This whole trend of people getting out of manufacturing is something that I haven't seen quite so severely as I have in the last 5 years, especially accelerated by the pandemic and all that. So waiting for the rock star machinist to come in and, hit the ground running on your floor, very, very rare these days. It happens, but you can't rely on it like you used to be able to. Instead, we've had to focus on bringing in people with minimal experience or no machining experience and training them up to what we need them to be in a certain role. Now, traditionally, the way we have trained guys, and we've been training guys here for guys and girls, we have male and female staff here. We've been training them for, since we've been around. We've had an apprenticeship program here, so 30 years. And I mean, I came up through it and it was fine, but the way that we used to train was a lot in the same way that I'm sure a lot of you machinists out there have come up in the trade, if you especially were there even 10 years ago. And that is basically you start as a machine operator. You're an apprentice, but you start as an operator. So you're loading and unloading vices. You're learning how to use a caliper to do some very basic QA. You're standing by a machine as it's running and learning when a cutter sounds like it's gonna break. You're learning how to deburr parts. You're learning how to saw cut material and get it ready. Basically, you're learning how to do everything that's involved with being an operator. That whole process typically could take a year or more of just being an operator. I know for me, it was a little different for me because I worked here on and off when I was in high school, and then I worked for a couple summers, and then I ended up coming on full-time. So by the time I got here full-time, I didn't have quite as long a operator period. But some people I know have been here for, or not anymore, but had been here for a year or more just in that operator role trying to get trained up. And you know, it's not like they didn't learn anything beyond that. It would be, you know, you'd learn how to touch off a tool this week, and then maybe the next week you would come and do some basic programming or watch the guy as he programs. The whole point is that it works, and eventually you'd have somebody who is competent enough to set up a machine, program, touch off their tools, run a program, QA it, but it would take years to get someone to that point. What we've started to do now has been a bit of a different approach to that, and I know what you guys are screaming at the screen right now. Ian, train more, be more intensive with training. And that's exactly where we've gone. Instead of trying to have people in a role and then slowly add on to them, we've switched over to a much more intensive training process. So now, I mean, you still need to learn that basic stuff, especially if you're coming from outside the trade. You do need to learn how to use a caliper. You do need to be exposed to machines running enough to understand them. But on top of that, we've found that partnering an apprentice directly with an experienced machinist for the entire day has been a far more beneficial process to everybody involved. So instead of having, you know, an operator who kind of pairs up with a machinist or gets checked up on by a machinist as the day goes, we're taking that operator and basically sticking them to the side of that machinist, and they do everything that machinist does in that day for weeks. The cost to this, obviously, is that this is a much more expensive way to train people. So if we have a job that's quoted out at X amount of labor in it, now labor is X plus 50%, if not more, depending on how much that person makes. That is a cost. No two ways around it. You now have two people doing the job of one person. That job is not going to make the margin it was. That job is going to take longer because that person is explaining what they're doing as they go. But the benefit is that person is getting exposed to so much more intensively, so much faster, that they're picking up and retaining things a lot more effectively. I mean, in our old method where someone would go and, you know, program something 1 week, and then in 2 weeks they'd be programming something again, all that knowledge and stuff they started to build up would just get lost. You know, it's like if you go skiing 1 year and then you do it twice, then you go skiing the next year. You're not really good at skiing because you did it twice before. You probably forgot everything you know. It's the same thing with machining. You have to be exposed to it intensively. And this approach has been so effective that we've had, for instance, one of our apprentices, they had, I believe, high school shop experience where they actually did have CNC machining and stuff, but very minimal, good mechanical ability. Now within 4 months, they can set up, run, program, QA completely independently on a 2-axis lathe and produce good parts. Do things go wrong every so often? For sure. It's not like you can just let them run and, you know, you are now a full machinist and make good parts or you get fired. The expectations are not there. But this person can now go look at a drawing, understand it, especially if it's a simpler drawing. We need 10 bushings out of this material. They can prep their material, program it, set up the machine, touch off their tooling, select the right tooling for the job, and make parts that are in tolerance and that meet our kind of standards for how long it should be taking. And that's crazy. Another person we had, they had machining adjacent experience. So, you know, they know how to turn a wrench. They understand how to work. They understand, you know, they have good mechanical ability. They're doing the same thing now on a mill. And they're not quite where the other guy is on lathe, but it's getting there, and they haven't been here as long. So it's this really intensive training. It costs a lot more. It takes a lot more effort. But if you're struggling with trying to retain talent or trying to attract talent, you should really be focusing on training people up internally and doing it intensively. It costs more, but the results are going to speak for themselves. The other thing that we have had reinforced over the last while, and when I say we, this one really is on me. I do the majority of the purchasing here at Lakewood. You know, I do have a production manager. He's fantastic, especially when I'm not in the shop that day. You know, if I'm off on a business trip or whatever, He can handle just about everything, do the ordering, whatever it may be. But this one is one that's really falling on my shoulders, and that is, you need to spend the money when you need to spend the money. And trying to avoid spending the money works sometimes, but most of the time, you should just buy what you need when you need it, buy the right thing the first time, you know, buy once, cry once. You know, a perfect example of this is that we had a job come through, and it was a stainless job. I think it was 304. And we kind of looked at the drawing, me and a couple of my guys, and we said, yeah, do you know what? We have a piece of material on the shelf down there. It's kind of ugly, but yeah, do you know what? Let's not buy material for this job. It's not that big a job. Let's just run with it. And, you know, everybody said, yeah, that sounds good. Did we get the job done? Yes. Did it end up taking way longer than we thought it should have? Yes, because the material was ugly. It had hard spots. It wasn't true bar. We had to do a lot of squaring up. For some reason, the material behaved really strangely. It was really odd, but we got the job done. Did we hate our lives the entire time it was happening? Yes. Should we have just bought nice material that we know exactly what the certs are? You know, this was not a critical part. This was just a part that was not supposed to rust. So it wasn't critical that it was, you know, material certed job, you know, with the chemical composition. Completely happy with it on the customer's end. That said, had we bought something that we knew exactly what we were working with, was spec'd out, had the mass spectrometry, that's a hard word, on there, yeah, we would have had a lot better time. Would it have cost more? Yes, but we would have saved all that time. These kind of scenarios, I think it's a little bit of a point of pride with a lot of us in the trade to make do with what we've got. You know, why spend $2,000 on a tooling assembly when we could kind of cobble something together and get it done? Or, you know, do we want to spend all the money on buying all these fixturing components to make a fixture when we might be able to get this done if we just kind of sack up some 2, 4, 6 blocks and some toe clamps? There is a point of pride that I think a lot of us feel in being able to get a job done. It's that problem solving that is fun sometimes. That said, when you lean too heavily on that, you're going to end up hamstringing yourself and getting in a far more difficult situation than you need to be. For instance, you know, if you have a production run, spend the money up front. The money is there in the margin. Spend the money to get by the fixturing or buy the components you need to make the fixturing. If you need to do a job where you could do 4 operations with tooling on the shelf, or you could spend the money, buy the tooling, and have it done in 2 operations or 1 operation, spend the money, get it done. When times get lean, there is even more incentive to try to just make do with what you have in order to keep margins high. Because if the margin's high on this job, if we lose on the next job, we're not laying anybody off. I understand that approach, and you know, recklessly spending money for no reason is a great way to end up bankrupt. That said, if you are a shop owner or a manager and you are leaning on this too heavily, at the end of the day, your guys are going to resent you. I think we've all worked for the cheap boss at some point, or we know the cheap boss who doesn't want to buy new tooling, doesn't want to buy new holders. You know, hey, listen, just get it done with what we've got on the shelf. Like I said, for a little bit, that's fun. Eventually, that just becomes more work. That becomes tiring. If you are a good machinist and you have some talent and you are constantly in a place where you cannot work to the best of your abilities because you're constantly trying to just figure it out, eventually you're gonna get tired of it. You're gonna wanna go somewhere where they have the fancy 5-axis mills, or where there is new tooling for every job, or you're not spending half your day rummaging through toolboxes looking for the best bad cutter because it still has one good edge on it. You know, I feel like we've all kind of fallen in this trap at some point or another, hopefully not that bad, but really building into your budget, building your war chest to be able to spend the money when you need it. And not only is it gonna make you more effective, but for shop morale, people wanna work somewhere where they feel like people care. If you have a dirty, dark, not well-equipped shop, your staff are gonna notice, and eventually they're gonna wanna go somewhere where it's nice. So make your shop nice, buy the nice tooling, invest in machinery, get repairs done when you need it. You know, if that one machine has that one quirk, but that's fine, just, you know, if you hit these 2 buttons, repair the machine. Repair the machine. You're gonna need to do it eventually. You're not getting out of spending the money. Spend the money, do it right the first time. In any case, guys, I'd like to know in the comments below what lessons you guys have learned recently, or things you have had reinforced in your business over the last little while, or if you're a machinist, what are some things that you wish people would learn? I feel like this is really important because we can all learn from each other's mistakes and hopefully not have to make those mistakes ourselves. So let us know in the comments below what you think on that. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. You take care.